Now I know what I have to do. No?
Answering the question first as to what business are you in? Service is something that I can do to a guest without them even having noticing that I'm doing it. Hospitality, trying to affect in a positive manner how somebody feels about themselves while they're in your company.
Cheers! What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Hospitality Secrets Podcast. I'm super excited today because one of the previous guests, we had such an intense and such a nice episode that we decided to give it one more try because as he put it at some point, if you don't have all the answers, at least you should have all the questions. So I'm the guy with 1,000 questions. I'm always with a lot of questions. So in this episode, I invited. This is like an extra bonus episode. I'm not posting it like after 1 week, but. It's another episode with Sean Finter today from Barmetrix. We had another previous episode, but today I want to ask him a few more questions from his vast knowledge, from his big experience from hospitality industry. So Sean, thank you very much for coming again. Welcome to Hospitality Secrets.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back, and I think I got the technology in better condition on my end here, so I'm ready to go.
Yeah, the technology, always the technology. As I remember in the trainings, like 80% of the problems that I had with the Ajobar Academy trainings were from technology. So
Right.
always the technology gives us hard times. But this time I hope the technology is with us. But I would say that it was for me it was a luck that technology was not at a high level as you wanted, because in this way I managed to get another episode. I managed to come with some new questions.
Right.
So
There you
thank you
go.
for accepting the episode again. So today I'll have like lots of questions. Do you want to jump in the questions?
I'm ready.
Super, super. So, first question would be about again about the COVID period, and how did you spend your time during the COVID lockdown?
Yeah, the last year has been a challenge for everybody. For me personally, though, I look at my life in four quadrants on a regular basis. You've got my career, which I own a few businesses, and like every business owner, you just got to find a way, especially during tough times, to kind of reinvent yourself and innovate. When it comes to me as a community member, our community has been hit harder than most. A lot of people, just didn't go into a year lockdown with savings or ready to be locked down in a small apartment in cities all around the world. So I spent time every week creating content and devoting time to people that were really struggling and in need of a hand in getting things back on track. Um, I'm also a dad, so of four kids. I'm a single dad, so I found out that I'm a much better teacher in the hospitality industry than I am in the public school system. I think my kids are happy to be back at school after spending a year with me at home. And then personally, I got in shape. I'm in better shape now than I was before the lockdown. And for me, I know that nothing's neutral. I was either going to come out of lockdown 50 pounds heavier, or maybe 20 pounds lighter and feel younger. And that's what I chose. So I ate better and worked out 4 or 5 days a week and feel a lot better about where I'm at personally. So it was
Wow.
overall an interesting experience.
So it was tough, but how did you felt it? How did you perceived it in the lockdown? Have you worked like more in this period than before?
I'd say I've worked harder in the last year than I have in the last 20. And the reason for that is there was just so much to be done, and just I was very efficient with what I did, and I don't want to come off saying that like I had fun in the last year, but I got a lot of value out of the changes that I made, and a lot of good things happened to me anyways, closer with my kids, gave me a chance to really figure out in business what I like doing and what I don't like doing. And in my community, I got a chance to talk to hundreds of people that I otherwise wouldn't have. So I'm able to see the glass as half full.
Nice, nice, nice. So, as somebody said it, that when there is a crisis, you either get wounded, or you get
Hmm.
stronger. So it's your choice how you get it. You get wounded and you get worst, or you get stronger and you do gym, you eat healthier, because mental health is it's very important, and I think was a big thing in the hospitality, especially in the hospitality during the coronavirus lockdown.
Yeah, yeah. For a lot of reasons. As I mentioned, just financially, it's traumatic to um, lose your lose your career and your ability to feed yourself and your family, and at the same time, the bills keep coming, and you're locked out. Like it's a surreal feeling. Like I talked to hundreds of people, and it's a feeling of helplessness, which most people hadn't experienced before. And and depending on where you live in the world, there's very few countries that were in a position to help people that were feeling that way. And how we normally heal ourselves is to be in groups and talk to people and spend time and do things that take our mind off it. And when all of that's taken away from you all at once, it's a perfect storm for people to for some people to feel mentally unhealthy for the first time, and for many people who have felt mentally unhealthy for many years, this just exacerbated the issues that they had.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, everything got it, like the foot was on the gas faster, either on the good way or on the bad way, in the mental health. So
Yeah.
business wise, what did you do done during the lockdown period?
Well, as I said, I got a few businesses. So, there's a range there from, our company Barmetrix that services bars and restaurants all over the world, varying countries, even varying cities. In the country I live in the U.S., if you were in Florida, you have an entirely different circumstance than you did in California. So, different percentages of volume that we were able to trade. And then another business I have, I'm in Franklin House right now. It traded $0. Yet the bank still wants their mortgage, and it's a large property. You got to keep the lights on, the heat on, and you know what I mean. It's different across the board. And consulting, there's always plenty of consulting work, and there was certainly lots to be had over the last year. But it was, depending on what projects made sense and so forth. But the main thing was kind of keeping our main team supported and up and running during this tough time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what is Barmetrix? Uh, I'm a big fan of Barmetrix. I'm following everything. I'm following the site. But for the listeners, like, what is Barmetrix? If somebody didn't heard about Barmetrix yet, what is Barmetrix?
Yeah, so Barmetrix was something that was born in Sydney, Australia, where I lived for 10 years, and I was I, I I ran 8 bars and restaurants there. That was uh, my portfolio, and what I found was when I had hundreds of employees and literally thousands of bottles across 8 properties and food and everything else, that our margins, we had things pretty tight in most areas, but we had issues with inventory control. And that's where the name came from. Like, we got to measure the bar metrics, and get that tighter. And so I developed software that you could take an open bottle of vodka that had maybe 6/10, or was your guess was it was 60% full, and scan the barcode. We had all the weights of the bottles, so you'd have the liquid unit mass, and then you put that on a digital scale, and it would interface to the point of sale system. So if you had cocktails that had 60 mils of this and 15 mils of that, we'd decrement all those ingredients, and we'd be able to tell down to the milliliter in the property, how much stock was missing at the end of the week or the end of the fortnight. And that's where it started. And we've worked with thousands of bars and restaurants around the world doing that. But it expanded from there, to what else can we measure? What other bar metrics can we measure? And we started looking at output during peak hours and understanding that there was a direct correlation between the capability of the staff during peak hours, which at most bars and restaurants is 12 to 14 hours a week, and their annual profits. And actually, like, looking at the capability of those people under pressure, the more capable they were, there was a direct correlation to repeat business. On a subconscious level, a guest wants to have a fast and quick service, but they also want calm. They don't want people to be running around, like chickens with their head cut off. So we started connecting all these dots. We started looking at flow in a business. We started looking at measuring guest satisfaction. So what's the difference between somebody who scores your bar or restaurant an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10? Well, it turns out that from the study done with net promoter scores, that an 8 out of 10, the person's telling you're pretty much forgettable. They got what they paid for, but they're going to look for something special elsewhere. And a 9 out of 10 means that they want to not only come back themselves, but bring their friends and family.
Wow,
so
such a big difference between 8 and 9.
It's huge. And between 0 and 6, even 6 out of 10, they're a detractor of your business. It means they didn't feel they got what they paid for, or they were upset or offended. So anyhow, I'm a bit of a geek. And when I started to look at the numbers, I always loved the bar business and the restaurant business, but I love the numbers and the correlation between certain things and ultimate success in that business, which isn't entirely financial. It's are your staff happy that are working for you? Are they learning and growing? Are you an effective community member inside of the city that you live in, et cetera, et cetera? So that's where Barmetrix was born from. Like, what could we measure? And you don't want to measure everything, but there's an old expression that says that people respect what you inspect. So if you're constantly looking at a certain data set, that's what's going to be important to your team.
Nice. So it started about measuring, and it grew, and you started measuring more important, more metrics that are relevant for the business success.
That's right. Yeah.
Nice.
And it's in an industry that makes its way with how people feel about your business. In my experience, the empirical data is what matters, right? Like, that's going to tell you anything worth doing, you can measure. And when we start to measure those things, they're just indicators that tell us, are we on the right track or the wrong track? And it gives us an opportunity to get on the right track and to do more of that.
And I think it's very relevant, and I think that hospitality industry needs to start tracking at least the basic things, at least their stocks, at least their profits, because what I discovered, I traveled a lot and I saw a lot of bars and restaurants. Most of them do not measure anything. They're just, okay, we are buying goods and then we are selling them, and this is what we did. So they have no idea about what's in and what they are selling and what they are doing. So I think it's very relevant and very helpful for the businesses in the hospitality industry to start tracking their metrics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, the name is very nice, and it's sticky, and it's there, Barmetrix. It tells everything.
That's right. That's right.
Nice, very nice name. Good. But how did you become a consultant and a coach in the hospitality industry?
I've had many jobs, not all. There's so many different roles you can play in the industry, and I've never worked in the kitchen. I've owned kitchens, but I've never played a role in the kitchen. But I've done most other things, and what I found was that I think where a person lands ultimately in their career, once you have choices and options, is has to do with your DNA, like how you were born and what makes you happy. And, the funny thing was, when I was quote unquote successful and I was a young restaurateur, I was making money, lots of revenue, lots of profit, lots of seeming success, I wasn't very happy. I wasn't, as a human being. In fact, it felt very empty at that time, because I thought I'd made it, and this is when I was finally going to be happy. But I realized then I was much happier on the way up than when I got to this place that I thought would be my happy place. So what I realized was that I like the grind. I like to build things. I like the messy work. And I was either going to do one of two things. I was going to develop a big portfolio and just keep in the grind, which I feared could burn me out. I was a young father and husband, or I was going to help other people not only accomplish their goals, but set their goals. And I realized there's a real art in setting goals that I had learned kind of coming up in business through my mentors, but realized it's not really taught in school. Like setting a goal that for a team to accomplish is actually quite difficult to do. Set a goal for yourself to accomplish is a lot easier, because you've only got one person to satisfy or to burn out or rub the wrong way. If you're setting a goal for a team, you have to mirror or layer on top of it what you actually want to accomplish, make sure that it gels and meshes and stretches in the right way. And then inside of that, you have to also understand, what the team is today, realize that in the restaurant business, man, teams change really quickly. Like there's turnover and so forth. You look at contingent factors like key members of the management team. You could lose one member of a team and it could derail a complete plan, because, you don't have an executive team of 16 people. You got like 2 or 3 people, Mary, David, and Sarah, right? And one of those people leaves, and Sarah was the HR department, or Mary was our ops team.
Financial department just quit.
They left. They left on a scooter.
Suddenly,
that's a bar business. Yeah, that's a bar business when you're getting going, at least. So when I realized, hey, I can help people set really effective goals, and then coach them to not only just keep them on track and keep pushing them, but bring my experience and tools and innovation. And like, I really see myself very much as part of every team that I work on. And I'm just a specialist. I just help them in certain areas. And I'm able to point out, a lot of big potholes that we might have driven through otherwise. I'm able to point out exit ramps that we might get off on sometimes that take a slightly different direction and so forth. And I love it. And it's the, it's funny. For me, like when I was in the groove a few years ago and I'd be working with 50 entrepreneurs a year, that's a lot, because we work on all 4 of those quadrants: personal, professional, business, and family. And so it's 50 times 4, you got 200 aspects of people's businesses. Wow. But we have them in groups and we're helping each other and so forth. But a friend of mine wants to find, a consultant or a coach is someone whose ego is too big for any one business. And I think there's some truth in that, I hope it's not all true, but there's definitely some truth in it.
Yeah. I'm doing also consulting, and what I like about this, it's always I'm always saying that I don't want a long-term relationship. I like only adventures. It's right. Like when you have your own business, it's like a lifetime relationship. But I like adventures, a bit here, a bit there.
Yeah, I do too. That's cool.
So this is why you became a consultant and a coach. And it's much more than just consulting. And what's the main difference between consulting and doing a coaching?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So coaching is, well, no, let me start with consulting. So consulting, there's many different types of consulting. I was a process consultant. You know, I have a methodology to get somebody from one place to the other. I can look at a plan, say, hey, does that straddle that business? Would this work? And then I consult with them on that. I make sure that the pieces of the plan that I'm good at get done properly, well, and on time. And then, you know, you have ad hoc consultants that I've done some of that, and I like that. But it's a lot more wide open where you're, you know, looking at a broad range of business and helping people with different things. It's you know, it's fun for the creative mind, and it can be very valuable for the client, but sometimes not. You know, there's a lot of ideas, and it's just getting an idea that's going to be executed properly. Um, Coaching for me kind of is the best of both worlds, where you're doing the process consulting, but you're also doing it in groups. And I became a coach only after I was coached. I didn't see myself ever playing that role. But, you know, my background, I grew up playing hockey in Canada, and I was usually, you know, a leader on the team. And so I've got those skills. I've got the business skills. I've got the experience. And there's something really magic about putting people into small groups, you know, like-minded people going in a similar direction. So I take 50 people at a time and then put them into groups of 7 or 8. And then they'd be going through the journey together. And it's amazing what happens. You know, you see what's working, what's not working. You think that you're doing good enough, but you see 3 other people in the group, you know, excelling because they're giving it 5% more of their time, and they're getting 50% more result. So something really cool about it. And it's a world that, you know, they say you kind of find your calling, which is the step above your career, is that if you were to take a year off, money was no object, and what would you do? And this is what I would do. This is how I found it. And
Nice.
it's kind of nice to get paid for it at the same time.
Nice, nice. That's fulfillment. If you would do it for free, and if there's somebody to pay, it is like very nice, very nice. Super, super.
That's right.
One question that I'm a big fan of quotes. I think that quotes are the sticky things that express a lot, are like have a lot of glue, and I like a lot of quotes. So the question would be, what is your favorite quote ever?
Yeah, well, I have a lot. I read quotes every day, but there's one that sticks with me that applies to not only my life, my clients that I work with, my children. I think it really applies to everyone. And it's an old Brian Tracy quote. And he said that it's your attitude, not your aptitude, that defines your altitude. So how high in this world you go isn't about how smart you are. It's about the attitude that you get to choose. And there's not many days that go by that I don't need to remind myself of that.
Nice, nice, nice. That's a good quote. That's a good quote, and I think this will be the title of this episode. The inspirational quote from Brian Tracy. Nice, nice quote.
Yeah.
But I would like to talk now about a bit about hospitality. I'm a big fan of hospitality, and I try to see it from different angles. So in this episode, I want to go in a to understand hospitality in a different way, and I would like to do like a small imagination game. And the question is that let's imagine that you suddenly, sorry, this is not about hospitality. The next question is about hospitality. This is about inspiring
Okay.
people to do something, because I think that in this period, as you said, a lot of people lost everything. they lost everything they had, and they had to start from zero. So the question is that if let's imagine that you suddenly lose everything you have, your name, your reputation, your businesses, you lose everything, and you have to start again from zero in the hospitality industry. The only thing that you have left, it's your know-how about this industry. So what would you do to get back up?
Well, this exercise isn't a big stretch for me because in some ways it happened to me when I was 26 years old. So I'd made a little bit of money in London, but I spent it all. I traveled 30 countries
Ooh,
over the course of 6 years.
wow.
So I arrived in Sydney, Australia with, a few $1,000s left in a backpack. And I'm a kid from a small town in Canada on the other side of the world. Nobody knows me in this very cool metropolitan city. And I've got to start over again. That was my choice to go and prove myself somewhere. And here's what I did. And it's what anyone that's, worked in the industry a few years could do. You've really got to think about all the things that you know how to do, and the things that you can do at a level of mastery. What are you really, really good at that you could teach someone? You could build a process and so forth. And when you think about those things, there's probably only going to be one, two, or three things. And probably only one of them is going to be marketable, right? That you could actually demonstrate that you could help someone make money with it. So I knew how to do a few things, and I knocked on the door of bars and restaurants, and I said, "Hey, you don't know me, but I've watched your business. I was here on Friday and Saturday night, and I could do these two things for you." And my estimation is that within 4 weeks we'd be able to get you from A to B, and I believe that would be worth approximately X. And I would like to come on board, teach your team how to do it, work with them, and be on a retainer that doesn't get paid until there's a proven profit increase. And basically, I would take over a number of months. I would say, hey, it'll take about 6 months to get you fully up on plane, and during that time, I get 50% of the increased profit. You get 50%. Meaning, if you don't have any increased profit, you don't have to pay me anything. So I'd be coming in, teaching you this know-how, and away you go. And I had clients lined up in no time, and was making really good money.
Wow. So you went door to door studying the business and then proposing the plan. And you were taking the money
I only
only
had to,
if they have results.
yeah, I only had to cold knock on one door, and it worked immediately. I was working on increasing revenue during peak hours, and it worked immediately. And I said to the gentleman that owned that business, before I go anywhere else, who do you think I should go and see? Oh, let me call. I got to call so and so and so and so. Went in with them. Then the next, and then I had to go watch to make sure, right? And I was looking for that low hanging fruit. I'm not lazy, but if you're if you want to eat, you got to make sure that that there's some juice in the squeeze. So, but most did. I'd say that the majority of businesses that were offered to me, and that's how I started, and that's how I got enough money to buy my first restaurant.
Wow. Wow. So you did call just once, and then you went from that and going. So the advice would be, find that one thing that you really are good in, and is marketable, and start doing it for free. Because kind of you did
Yeah,
it for
I think
free if you wouldn't increase the profit.
that's right. That's right. And I was willing to take that risk. I had a little bit of money saved, and I know, that the things that I do are going to bring value. You got to find the right fit and connection, and then the right people to work with to make sure that they're going to really get behind it. And it just makes sense. I find that most people in their approach to consulting, it's just too broad. Like they make a lot of promises. They can fix anything. And it's like, yeah. And even if you do really well in two or three areas, the fourth one that doesn't work, that's what they remember you for, right? Like I only did things that I could crush it with, and I left everything else to everybody else.
Okay, so you went first go deep before you go wide, no?
I only go deep, like, get that working. If you want to do the next thing, you got to get a team, keep that thing working. Like why shut down an oil well that's producing oil and then the next thing and the next thing, you know?
Nice,
I
nice,
wasn't looking for the easy dollar or,
nice, nice.
build something
So
that's going to last.
don't cut the corners. If you have to take it from scratch, get one thing that you are good at and do that, and show the result that you are providing.
Yeah,
Good,
exactly.
good. Super, super, super. Thank you very much. Now we go a bit about hospitality, because we are in the hospitality industry, and we have to go deeper in the hospitality, as you said, to go deep. And I like to go deep as I can in the hospitality, the concept of hospitality. And the question is, again, it's an imagination thing. Let's imagine that I am completely new to this industry and I would like to start working in your bar. How would you explain to me what hospitality is and what I have to do to show hospitality to my guests? Even though I have no experience, I never heard about hospitality. I just want to start working during college.
Yeah. So let me answer in a broad sense, and then we'll go a little bit deeper. So I think the one of the challenges that most people have with defining and teaching hospitality is that there are just so many different brands of hospitality, right? So it's like saying I'm in the car business. It's a big difference if I tell you I'm in the Fiat business or the monster truck business or the Tesla business, right? They're all cars, but they're very different, right? And they're going to serve very different constituencies. And in order to make those constituencies happy, we have to do very different things. So, I think it goes back to answering the question first as to what business are you in, right? That's a key. Some people say, well, I'm in the drinks business. Okay, are you? Is that what you do? Is that, you're there to some people are. Some people say I'm in the food business. Some people say I'm in the service business. Other people say I'm in the hospitality business. So, and I've been in one bar that people give me all those answers in the same bar. Like they all work at the same place. You don't even know what business you're in. So let me just break down the difference between two of those, like the service business versus the hospitality business. Service is something that I can do to a guest without them even having noticing that I'm doing it. I could bring them their food. I could arrange their silverware. I could take things away. I could place an order. I could do things to them and for them. Hospitality, I think the best definition, if I was explaining to a younger person, is that hospitality is the way a person feels when they're in your company.
Nice,
Right?
nice.
So you are responsible. You are trying to affect in a positive manner how somebody feels about themselves while they're in your company. And I've had 20-year-olds say, well, how can I do that with a table of 50-year-old people? I say, well, you have the ultimate power to walk up and make them feel anxious by bringing anxiety yourself to the table. You could make them feel comfortable by your demeanor. You can make them feel happy by making them laugh. You have incredible power in that window of time. And I think that defining your brand of hospitality, understanding why it's important to your constituency, understanding what the levers are to accelerate that, and then being able to teach that is one of the keys to this business.
Nice, nice, very nice. So I just got hired, and now I know what I have to do. No? I have to influence in a positive way the way that my guests are feeling, feeling about themselves. How can I do that? Like in a few examples, how can I actually show hospitality? Let's say to to a couple, like me going to I have to go to a table and there is a couple. How can I show my hospitality to them?
Yeah. So, there's again, it's a brand of hospitality that you're looking to convey. Some businesses, their hospitality is very tied up in specialty products and knowledge and cocktails and so forth. Like it's a high IQ sort of venue that you're going to. I used to run more, like, not all dive bars, but I had a couple of dive bars where it was all about that feeling of reminiscing and remember, 10 years ago, or that window of 10 or 15 years when we might have been back in high school or at college or whatever it might be. But when you look at kind of human to human tactical ways to influence the way that somebody feels, I think even in, now Corona's changed everything, and all, there's a lot of focus on touching and how people touch. I still think the best hospitality is face to face, hand in hand. Once we get this virus out of the way and we get back to being able to, put your hand on someone's shoulder to greet them when they come in, and pull a chair out for them and walk them through a menu, and really, not be in their space, but be near their space, have your spaces overlapping. I think chivalry is, I'm always a guy who's always dressed down. I ride motorbikes, and I only really wear jeans and boots and so forth. But, when talking to people my own age or older, using chivalry and being polite, it almost takes people off guard now, because, a lot of people are lazy in their language. Um, you know, really genuinely sharing your enthusiasm for what it is that you're about to bring to them, whether it be your drinks or your food.
Nice.
I believe that sales, the best sales people, it's a transfer of enthusiasm, right? I'm
Nice.
excited about it, and I'm going to get you excited about it, right? I always looked, when I was a waiter or a bartender, like, if we had the abilities to give samples, or to let people try things, or to just go over and above a little bit. People love that. There's so many ways to show them that, firstly, that I care that you're here. This is more than a job to me. I always saw and I still see it to this day, as an honor to serve others. If you come to my house for a house party or a party on the dock, the number one thing people say to me is, Sean, sit down and enjoy this and whatever. And I always have to say to them, please know, this is how I enjoy things, right? My favorite place is to be taking care of you. And if you make me sit down, you're going to take that away from me,
Nice.
right? So
Nice.
you want to help them understand that this is who we are and what we do. Help them, you don't want them to have a nice meal. You want them to have the best meal possible. So you want to help them create that. You want to talk to them about what they like, what they've had before, and then, get a sense of their risk profile, right? If somebody's a very meat and potatoes, then you're not pushing them for a pasta that's got gorgonzola in it, right? But if somebody does demonstrate that they're willing to go outside that box a little bit, like, oh my goodness, this isn't our number one seller, but everyone that has it, like, goes crazy for it. You should try this. And know, with all of our food, like, if you don't like it, I'm going to get you something else and just take that off the bill. So it's no risk. And so suddenly people go, oh my God, that's really cool. And I think, last thing, I could tell you a million things that I did and I encourage my team to do, but I firstly, I always said, like, don't bullshit people, right? Don't lie to them, but look for an opportunity to compliment someone. And I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me on the way out and said about my staff, that he said, listen, this young man that you've got working for you, like, he just, as he was seating me, he said, he just said he loved my jacket, or that, something about my hair, or, you know what I mean? Like, how much money people spend on their food and hair and makeup and everything. No one ever says anything. So if it looks good and it's not inappropriate, like, you suddenly see somebody light up, and away they go, right? These are all aspects of hospitality that far exceed, are you ready to place your order?
Nice, nice. And it's quite memorable. I remember a story like 4 or 5 years ago. I've been to a city in Romania. I was supposed to deliver a training in that day. And I went to Starbucks before to have the fresh, to work a bit there. And when I went to the cashier to pay, there was a guy, and I still remember that guy, and he said to me, "Nice shirt." And it was so impactful and so memorable for me because it's not happening very often. To be honest, I don't think it ever happened before to me in the hospitality industry, somebody to compliment my shirt. And I was picking the shirts very careful because I was always trying to change the shirt for each training, and I was very careful with my shirts. And he said, "Nice shirt," which was very, very memorable for me. And I enjoyed it so much, and
Right.
I felt so special just because one small thing. Small compliment.
Isn't that amazing? You remember that years later, and every time I do, or not every time, but sometimes people say, "Oh, where I got this," or they have a sale on over here, or there's a website you can't buy it in a regular store, and I'm like, "Oh, that's so cool." You know? Yeah,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
not?
Yeah, and it's more memorable than the products, because in Starbucks the coffee is not so memorable. The products are not so memorable, but the service, the hospitality, the compliment, that thing was so memorable for me. That was a big pleasure to go to Starbucks, and I like going working in Starbucks. So,
Right.
and that make it even more special for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hospitality, it's about small things that make the big difference.
It's it's about connecting about 5 or 10 dots on a visit, right? Like it's not enough if we could just do one thing or say one thing and we've hit a home run. It's a series of things that happen, and while you're building up that repertoire, um, you might have a blunder, something negative happens, and it's so much less impactful if you've been building up this goodwill on the way through of we always focused on, and I'll give you one example. Back then, you had CDs and a CD burner. We had a really cool playlist. I love music, so we had all these different playlists. And if somebody said, "Oh, I love this song," what's this song? Um, Instead of just writing it down for them, which I encourage the staff to do it at a minimum, we had in the back like certain playlists and a CD, which would cost us like $1, right? And then they would underline that song and they say, here's the whole CD, $1."
Wow,
So
wow.
they love it. You've gone over and above. How likely do you think that person is to come back again?
He's a
Right?
fan. He's a fan from now.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that CD's in his car or her car, and they're playing it, and someone gets in, "Oh, this is really cool. You won't believe where I got this." And then that person wants to come in, right?
Yeah.
That's hospitality. That's how it works. It's a feeling that goes from one person to the next.
Wow. That's deep. That's deep. Nice.
Mhm.
Super nice. Super nice. And even though hospitality is not so difficult, but it is to apply. why do bars? Why do some bars and restaurants make a lot of money, but the majority of the businesses in our industry struggle to make a profit because it's like a very small profit, small margin industry? Why is this so?
Yeah. Well, there's you know, let's start at the beginning in how people get into the industry, right? There's a very low barrier for entry into our industry. If you and I wanted to get into pharmacy, you can't just go open up a pharmacy. Even if you want to get into hardware, you want to go compete with your local giant box store. You just can't buy a bunch of hammers and hang them on the wall and see how you go, right? So our industry's got a pretty low barrier for entry. There's people looking to get out every day for nothing. They just want to escape it. So that is a starting point, makes, you can see why the water gets muddied pretty quickly. Secondly, you have people that enter the industry because they love to cook, or they love drinks and they want to share that with people. What they realize very quickly is that the owner of the bar or restaurant doesn't make many meals and doesn't make many cocktails, right? It's like you suddenly find yourself trying to find staff, trying to pay the rent, trying to pay payroll, trying to deal with the city. It's not what a lot of people think that it is. But let's just assume though you got in for the right reasons, and then you're doing what you do. The problem with our industry is that you have so many people that are starving artists, right? They love their art, they love doing what they're doing, and I'll put this myself, my former self in this bucket as well, that they have a terrible relationship with money. So if you're like me, I grew up making minimum wage. So then when I was making management money, I was like feeling good about the world. This is great. Look at how hard I've worked and everything else. Then when you start making ownership money of a successful business, you feel guilty, right? So it's like you got to figure out that relationship with money and realize that it's all those thousands of hours that you did at minimum wage that you're now getting remunerated for. But in addition to that, it's really figuring out how to run a business. So it's an intersection between being a business person and being an artist, because there is some art to this world, and you got to run a business at that intersection. Rather than, you can't be all business, or there's no energy, there's no vibe, there's no character to your business, and it can't be all art. Otherwise, you're going to have debt collectors chasing you down every week. So
And you'll
somewhere
starve.
between there. Yeah. And I think if you're like allergic to the numbers and spreadsheets and so forth, then you either have to have a partner or a really good professional that teams up with you, that helps you run the business and understand the business in a way that keeps you in the black. And I think, I've told thousands of operators this, that I think it's irresponsible to run a struggling business, because I've worked at struggling businesses and everyone struggles in them. You don't know if the place is going to be open next month. You don't know if you're getting paid. There's not the equipment that's supposed to be there. They cut corners on the safety measure, all that sort of stuff. So running a strong, healthy, profitable business that reinvests in its staff is where I encourage everyone to shoot for.
Whew. So it's not easy, but it's not impossible.
That's
So
right.
focus on bringing the art of hospitality together with the art of business, with the numbers, with the metrics of the business. You need to have them both together in order to succeed in this industry.
That's exactly it.
Still staying about the current industry, the hospitality industry that we are facing, we are having now, the question is that if you would have a magic stick and you could do whatever you'd want, what would you change to the hospitality industry that we have today in order to make it a better place for all the persons in the hospitality industry, for owners, for managers, for bartenders, for waiters, for everybody, even for the guests? So a magic stick, what would you change?
I think that the thing that would make the biggest impact across all the sectors of the industry is transparency, right? Like I like the way my view of the industry, because I work with all constituencies, is there's not just a wall between front of house and back of house. There's like a wall between staff and ownership, or staff and management. And it's interesting to me that a lot of owners do not share the numbers with sometimes even with their managers, but certainly with their staff. Not because they're making so much money that they're embarrassed, because they're losing so much money that they're embarrassed, right? And when I go into businesses and help them open their books and show them what's happening and say, hey, here's how we improve. This is the levers that we pull on to do this. If you cut costs here, you stop losses here, you accelerate revenue here, and this is how it looks over the next 2, 3, 4, 6 months. It's at that point you see people on the same page for the first time, and the opposite of that is pretty ugly. It's owners in a holding pattern of resentment, that they've taken all this risk and that the money's got to be going somewhere, someone's got to be stealing it. That you have managers being put in a position to not just work 70 or 80 hours a week, sometimes 100 hours a week, and erode not only their health, but their relationships. And then you have staff who are, as the place gets less busy, they're making less tips, or if you're working in the kitchen, you often then see good people in a really bad place where, as a father of four, if the difference between my children eating protein this week was putting a piece of chicken in my pocket or not at the end of the night, after I'd given this place 60 hours of my life this week at minimum wage, and I still can't afford to take care of my family, that becomes a more difficult decision to make, to do the right thing. Right. So it's like, how do we create a work world, an environment, and transparency and dialogue where we can all say, hey, we are to some degree all in this together. How can we all win together, rather than how do we ultimately all lose together?
So with the magic stick, you will stick the teams together, make all the businesses more transparent and more closely the staff with the managers, with the owners. Good.
That's
Good.
right. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Whew. So time is flying. So I still have a few questions, and still like to talk about secrets, being at Hospitality Secrets. And the next question is about secrets. And if we think at the secret as a secret as being an important piece of information that only a few people know, the question is, what is your biggest secret about being super successful in the hospitality industry?
So you were breaking up a little bit. Can you say that one more time?
So if we think as a secret, as an important piece of information that only a few people know, what is your biggest secret about being successful in the hospitality industry? What would you share with people, persons from the hospitality industry, in order to be successful? Like, what's your secret sauce of being successful in the hospitality industry?
Okay. So you asked me for one, I'll give you two. So I'll make it quick. So
Yes.
as an employee, you're working in the kitchen, you are working, or if you're a bartender or server, whatever you do, I looked at the intersection between the brand I was going to work for, are they on the rise or the decline? The experience that would be afforded to me, or what I could determine from the outside. And then, as important or more important than any of those, the person that I was going to work directly under. So, having a boss is one thing, having a mentor, having someone who will generously share his or her experience and guide you as you go. That's what I did instead of college. I didn't qualify for college. So I had very smart, generous people invest in me. And you have to go and find that, because it's not available at most places. On the ownership side, and for all those owners today or aspiring owners, I got very lucky when I assembled my first board together. And I had a gentleman who came onto the board who joined us kind of a year in, and I was sort of funding my second place. And he said, he's looking at our balance sheet and our P&L, and he said, "Where is profit?" I said, "Well, profit's the bottom." I thought, man, who have I got onto my board? This guy doesn't even know where to find profit. It's at the end of the whole thing. He says, no, where's your built?
Sean, I think
expect to make money?
I think I lost you a bit. I lost the last 10 seconds.
Person that comes in.
Sean, can you hear me?
Oh.
Yeah. I lost the last 10 seconds, 5-10 seconds. Can you repeat a bit from the profit? So the profit is not at the bottom.
Yeah, it's built into the business. It's a built-in profit. And he said that, you have your wages there as a placeholder for the person that's going to replace you. So it's got to be a fair market wage, not some ridiculous, I think I'm worth $1 million a year, so I'm going to charge that to the business. It's what would someone do who's doing what you do to replace you, and a person who would be better than you. And then the profit, if you have a business that you expect to make 10% profit, 15% profit, you build that in to above the line, and then you run your business, and then you can make additional profit to that. He said, if you don't do that, what entrepreneurs do is they charge hard up to the line so that everyone gets paid except them, or the business doesn't profit. And he said, what's the point of designing a business that you can't allocate profit? Now, a guy in my business group, actually, Mike Milkowitz is his name. He has expounded on that formula and wrote a book called Profit First. And I suggest to everyone who's running a business or owns a business, read that book and apply the practices.
Profit First what's the name of the Profit First?
Mike Milkowitz, I think is how you pronounce his last name.
Mike M. And I will Google it. Super. So that's an interesting book. Yeah, because usually what's happening, you are paying everybody as an owner, as an entrepreneur, you are paying everybody. And if there is a profit, you can pay yourself. And usually what's happening, what I saw a lot of times happening, an owner from the hospitality industry, an owner of a bar, he's paying everybody. And at the end of the month, he's taking less money that the bartenders made during that month.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And if you think about it, and this is a very a quick overview, but to the extent where he even suggests setting up for instead of your company bank account, that you've got 5 accounts. You've got where all the money lands, and then each and every week you divvy it up by percentage into. So you have your wages go into this account. That's where you pay your wages from. You have your cost of goods goes into here. You have your operating expenses goes into here, and you have your profit goes into here. So now if there's not enough money left, it's like, well, which person's overspending?
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Very nice. Very nice. I'll take that book. I will buy that book and I will read it. Nice. Thank you for the advice. And I think, that's a nice secret for the listeners. Sean, I know that you coach some of the most successful hospitality operators in the world. What are the top 5 strategies that you are recommending for running a world-class bar or restaurant?
Yeah, so I'll give you these kind of real quick, and then I actually have some assets and things that for free for your listeners if they want to do this. So from the top, I think, opening up a bar or restaurant, like my belief is that most cities, most towns don't need another bar or restaurant, right? You better have something special. There better be a reason. And if you start by answering the question, why does the world need your bar to exist? Like, what are you going to do differently than anybody else? What are you going to do that's special? And don't tell me you're going to do a better steak or a better burger. Like, it just doesn't fly. So, start there. Really start with, why the hell am I doing this? Instead of joining forces with somebody else or opening up that pharmacy, maybe selling marijuana.
You would be successful in these days.
Yeah. So once you get that in place, I've got a program that I'll give you guys called Napconomics, where you draw your business out onto a single page, and you have to be able to articulate why you're doing what you're doing, what you're actually going to do, how you're going to do it, what your guests will love, what they'll hate. And when you make mistakes, what you're going to do every day, how you're going to recover those relationships, right? Sounds
Nice.
easy. Most businesses can't do it, and they've been open for 5 years, on the first pass. So if you can get it right before you get started, you're going to do great. Third thing is, realize that no matter what type of business you're going to look to open, you are very much in the people business, and the people that you are serving are the people that work for you, right? Then those people serve your guests. So if you don't like kids that were grew up in small little towns, or people from different countries, or people with tattoos on their necks, or what, those are the people you got to love, right? Kids like me that grew up, in a messy background, that want a chance to prove themselves, that want a structure to work inside of. So it's not enough just to love your customers and your friends that come in. You got to be able to take care of the people that work there. Fourth step to that is, you need to be able to teach them your brand of hospitality, right? If you can't teach your brand of hospitality, do not open a bar or restaurant. There's not enough of you to go around. And I had thousands of guests that would come in every week. I'd serve exactly 0 of them most weeks, but I was busy teaching other people how to deliver my brand of hospitality. And then
Nice.
finally, and I think this is more important today than ever before, is, um, I was 21 years old, 22 years old, working in London, and came back. I went to a funeral of the guy that I worked for when I was young, and I mean, there were more people at the funeral. He owned the truck stop there. There were more people at the funeral than lived in the town, right? And like big burly men, truckers, people weeping. This guy just changed the lives of a lot of people. And I
Nice.
got back and I told my boss about it and how touched I was. And he said something to me that it's stayed with me to this day. He said, Sean, how would someone that spent 2 years in your care describe you 10 years later?
Ooh.
Right. And I tell you, the answer at that time of my life was they probably not very favorably. Right. I was tough. I was driven, but I wasn't building people's lives. I wasn't invested in their future. I wasn't thinking about their family and how to make their life and career better. So it changed me, and I encourage everyone to ask themselves that question. But yeah, those are 5 places that if you start there, I think you'll finish well.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you for sharing. And for the listeners, if they want to see the napkinomics and all the info, where they should go.
They can go. They'll set up businessofbars.com, and if they
Businessofbars.com.
yep, and if they have any questions, they can email me directly. My team always helps me get the answers, and it's just Sean, SEAN Finter, FINTER, at Barmetrix, BARMETRIX.com.
.com. Thank you very much for sharing. So for the listeners, if you want to find out these 5 amazing strategies, I know the content and I study them a lot. The strategies that you said, and that are so impactful and so powerful, and I think that are missing a lot in this industry, actually, unfortunately, because there are everybody's just opening another bar. Why are you opening the bar? I want to make money. So it's another bar, and as you said, maybe your town doesn't need one more bar or one more restaurant. So
Yeah.
go to businessofbars.com, or email Sean Finter around barmetrix.com, and see those amazing, mind-blowing strategies that Sean just described. Thank you very much for being so generous to share with the listeners this amazing content.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. It's always a pleasure to hang with you and talk.
Always a pleasure. That's why we did it twice.
That's right.
And I enjoyed it as much as the first time.
Yeah, me too.
So 1 hour already flew away. So I want to close with a big takeaway for the listeners. What is your number one takeaway that you really want the listeners to remember from this episode?
Well, I think that we talked about a lot of different ideas today, and what I tend to see when people reach out to me and want to do better in their business, they associate that with do more, take on something new. And I'll just share, some advice that I got when I was building my bar, and I want to do more. I want to do another place and another place. And one of the people on my board said to me, so if you open up another place, what would that accomplish? And it'd be more revenue and then more profit. And he said to me, how much does the store we're in today do per year? And I said, around 2.5 million. And he said, what would happen if it did 3.5 million? What if you added another $1 million worth of revenue here? And well, I said, I don't know how I would do that. And he said, well, that's not what I asked. He said, what would happen? And I said, well, I do $1 million more in revenue and about probably $750,000 to the bottom line. He said, if you open up a new place that did $2.5 million, and I said, well, at that time doing 15% revenue, you can do the math, less than $500,000 on that with all that work. And he goes, why wouldn't you get this place doing more? And that's when we started doing more functions. We started doing takeaway business. Like we just did more with what we had. And, with any of the things I talked about today in Business of Bars, like go deep on something and like start with your peak hours and look and see what you can do. You do 80% of your business and 20% of your trade. But there's, in fact, I don't know many bar and restaurants, and I've been in thousands of them, that are fully optimized. So look to do that with your business and look to do it with your people, rather than trying to find more people. Like lift your people up and get your people healthier, and they'll do 10, 15% more on a shift. They'll make more money. You'll make more money. I think optimize is the focus for me for 2021.
Nice. Optimize the focus. Great. Amazing insights, amazing information. Sean, that's it for today. Maybe we'll do a third episode.
Right. Every week, me and you.
At some point, maybe. Yeah, I still have lots of questions.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm open to it. But we got a lot for now.
Thank you very much. It was a big pleasure,
Right.
amazing pleasure. Thank you for joining this episode.
Yeah, the pleasure was mine. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Talk to you soon. Cheers. Thank you, Sean. So for the listeners, that was the big surprise that I had this week. Another surprise episode going even deeper with Sean Finter into the business of hospitality industry. So I hope you enjoyed it at least as much as I did. And if you want to see more surprise guests, if you want to find out more hospitality secrets, I strongly advise you go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Casts, basically any platform that are with podcasts, and subscribe and listen. And Wednesday we'll have a new surprise guest. You'll see Wednesday. Thank you very, very much for being here with us. I hope it was useful. That's it for today. See you Wednesday. Cheers.